The small research ship Gentle Current floated helplessly in the dark space between two distant stars. Its smooth, pearl-white hull was cracked in several places, and thin streams of glowing blue gas leaked out into the cold void. Inside the ship, Captain Vell pressed his webbed hand against the control panel and watched the numbers on his screen drop lower and lower. "Captain," called out his navigator, Finn, from across the bridge, "life support is down to 38%. At this rate, we have maybe 6 hours left." Vell closed his large, dark eyes and tried to stay calm. His people, the Aquari, were known throughout the galaxy for being peaceful and wise. They lived on water worlds and spent their time studying science and art. They had never been in a situation like this before. The Gentle Current was supposed to be on a simple mission. They were exploring new star systems, looking for planets with peaceful plant-eating creatures that might want to join the Galactic Council. It was supposed to be safe and easy work. But 3 days ago, they had flown into a field of floating rocks that the ship's sensors had missed. The rocks had torn through their hull like sharp knives through paper. Now they were stranded millions of miles from the nearest help, with their engines dead and their communication system barely working. "Sir," said Dr. Kef, the ship's medical officer. She was tending to several crew members who had been hurt when the rocks hit their ship. "The younglings are having trouble breathing. The air is getting too thin for them." Vell looked over at the corner of the bridge where 5 young Aquari sat quietly. They were just children, brought along to learn about space exploration. Their gills were fluttering rapidly as they struggled to get enough oxygen from the failing air system. The captain felt a heavy weight in his chest. These were his people, his responsibility. There had to be something he could do. "What about the emergency beacon?" asked Finn. "Can we send a distress call?" Vell nodded and moved to the communication station. The emergency system was still working, though barely. When he activated it, the screen lit up with a map of nearby star systems. The computer began searching for any civilization that had faster-than-light travel and could reach them in time. "Scanning for rescue possibilities," the computer said in its calm, musical voice. "Please wait." The crew gathered around as the system worked. Dots of light appeared on the star map, showing different alien civilizations. Most were too far away. Others did not have ships fast enough to reach them before their air ran out. Then suddenly a new dot appeared on the map. It was close, very close compared to the others. The computer highlighted it in bright green. "Suitable rescue civilization found," the computer announced. "Planet designation, Earth. Species, human. Technology level, advanced faster than light. Capability. Estimated travel time to rescue, 18 hours. Vell frowned as he looked at the information. "Earth? I have never heard of this planet. Finn, check the Council database." Finn's fingers moved quickly over his control panel. After a moment, his face went pale. "Captain, I found it, but there is a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The planet Earth is listed in the restricted files. It says here, extreme hazard, death world classification, contact forbidden, species designated as highly dangerous." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what a death world was, a planet so harsh and deadly that any species that evolved there would be savage and violent. The Galactic Council had strict rules about avoiding such worlds and the dangerous creatures that came from them. "But, Captain," Dr. Kef said softly, "look at their technology rating. It says they have advanced medical systems and rescue capabilities." Vell stared at the screen. The computer estimated that these humans could reach them in 18 hours, just in time to save his crew. But if they really were dangerous deathworlders— He looked around the bridge at his dying crew. The younglings were getting weaker by the minute. Several of his officers were unconscious from lack of oxygen. They did not have 18 hours to debate this decision. "Maybe the database is wrong," Vell said, more to himself than to anyone else. "Any species advanced enough to travel between stars must be civilized. They must have learned to be peaceful, like all council members." Finn nodded hopefully. "Perhaps the classification is just old information, or maybe it is a mistake." Lai made his choice. With shaking hands, he activated the distress beacon and aimed it toward Earth. The message would travel faster than light, reaching the human homeworld in just a few minutes. He carefully composed their plea for help. Emergency transmission. To planet Earth. This is Captain Vell of the research vessel Gentle Current. We are stranded in space with critical life support failure. Our position is... He read off their coordinates. We have 43 crew members aboard, including 5 younglings. We are scientists and explorers. We mean no harm to anyone. Please, if you can hear this message, we desperately need rescue. Time remaining. Approximately 6 hours. After he sent the message, Vell sat back in his chair and waited. Around him, his crew tried to stay calm, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They were putting their lives in the hands of complete strangers from a world marked as dangerous. How long until we get a response? Asked Dr. Kiff. If they receive our message and decide to help, we should hear back within the hour, Vell replied. Then 18 hours for them to reach us. The waiting began. Every few minutes, someone would check the life support readings. The numbers kept dropping. 35%, 32%, 28%. Finally, after what felt like forever, the communication system crackled to life. A new voice came through the speakers, deeper and rougher than any Aquari voice, speaking in words that the ship's translator had to work hard to understand. Attention vessel Gentle Current. This is Admiral Kane of the Terran Defense Command. We have received your distress call and are preparing an immediate rescue mission. Please transmit your detailed ship specifications and crew medical requirements. Help is on the way. The bridge erupted in relieved cheers. They were saved. But as Vell listened to the message again, certain words stuck in his mind. Terran Defense Command. Not Terran Science Institute or Terran Exploration Service. Defense Command sounded military. Captain, Finn whispered. Did you notice what he called himself? Admiral Kane. That is a military title. Vell felt a chill run through his body. What kind of rescue ship would be commanded by a military officer? What kind of civilization put their military in charge of rescue operations? But the life support was down to 24% now, and there was no time for second thoughts. They had called for help from the Death Worlders, and now that help was coming. All they could do was wait and hope that they had not made a terrible mistake. Outside the ship, the stars continued to shine coldly in the darkness, keeping their secrets about what was racing toward them through the void. Deep inside the Terran Defense Command headquarters on Earth, alarms suddenly filled the air with their sharp, urgent sound. Admiral Kane was in his office, reviewing reports from the outer colonies, when his communication officer burst through the door. Sir, we have an emergency transmission from unknown aliens, Lieutenant Ross said, breathing hard from running. They're asking for rescue. Kane stood up quickly, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the room. His gray hair and weathered face showed the marks of 30 years in the military. Aliens? Are you certain it's not a trick? The transmission is unlike anything we've seen before, sir. The language patterns, the technology signatures, it's definitely not human. And sir, Ross paused, looking worried. The bioscans they sent show they're dying. Life support failure in space. Kane followed Ross to the main command center, where dozens of officers worked at glowing screens. The large wall display showed a map of nearby space, with a small blinking dot marking the location of the alien ship. Play the message, Kane ordered. The speakers filled the room with a strange musical voice. Emergency transmission to planet Earth. This is Captain Vell of the research vessel Gentle Current. We are stranded in space with critical life support failure. Kane listened to the entire message, his expression growing more serious with each word. When it finished, he turned to his intelligence officer, Colonel Reed. Reed was a shorter man with scars across his left cheek from a battle with space pirates 5 years earlier. What do we know about this area of space, Colonel? Kane asked. Reed pulled up detailed star charts on his screen. Sir, that's the Kepler 442 region. It's been getting dangerous lately. 3 different alien species have been building military bases there. The Vorthak Empire, the Hegemony Coalition, and the Rigel Confederacy. They're all expanding toward human space. Could this be a trap? Kane asked, studying the coordinates. Bait to lure one of our ships into an ambush? Reed zoomed in on the biological readings from the alien ship. The life signs look genuine, sir. We're seeing 43 different biosignatures, and several appear to be children based on their smaller size and higher metabolic rates. If it's a fake, it's incredibly detailed. Kane was quiet for a moment, thinking. He had learned to be suspicious during his long military career. Too many good soldiers had died walking into traps. But the readings showed children dying in space, and that changed everything. "What's our closest ship to their position?" he asked. "The Iron Hammer, sir," replied Captain Torres, the fleet coordinator. She was a tough woman in her 40s who had worked her way up from enlisted ranks. It just finished patrol near the Centauri colonies. Captain Morrison commanding with a full crew of 800. Kane nodded. The Iron Hammer was perfect for this mission. It was one of Earth's newest Dreadnought-class warships, 2 kilometers, long and armed with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. More importantly, it had excellent medical facilities and could handle rescue operations. "Get me Captain Morrison on the line," Kane ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the Iron Hammer. Captain Morrison appeared, a calm, steady man in his 50s with graying temples. Behind him, Kane could see the efficient activity of a warship's bridge crew. "Admiral, we received the alien transmission," Morrison said without waiting for orders. "My medical team is already analyzing their biological data. What's your assessment, Captain?" "They're not human, but they're definitely dying. Dr. Park says we can adapt our life support systems to help them. The ship appears to be a science vessel. No weapon signatures that we can detect." Kane made his decision. "Captain Morrison, you are hereby ordered to proceed immediately to the coordinates and render assistance to the alien vessel. Full rescue protocols." "Understood, sir. What are our rules of engagement if this turns out to be hostile?" "Protect yourself and your crew first, but remember, if this is genuine, we're about to make first contact with a new alien species. How we handle this could affect Earth's future relations with them." Morrison nodded seriously. "We'll be ready for anything, Admiral. Estimated travel time at maximum hyperspace speed is 18 hours. Make it 17 if you can, Captain. Those children don't have much time." As the connection ended, Kane turned to address his staff. "I want full monitoring of this situation. If the Iron Hammer runs into trouble, I want to know immediately. Also, get me a line to the President. She needs to know about this." Colonel Reed stepped forward. "Sir, shouldn't we contact the Galactic Council about this? Standard procedure for first contact situations." Kane's expression darkened. "The Council? Reed, they've been ignoring our request for membership for 20 years. 3 of their member species are building military bases in space we consider ours. As far as I'm concerned, this is between us and these, what did they call themselves? Aquari, sir. From the research vessel Gentle Current. Right. This is between us and the Aquari. The Council doesn't get a say." Meanwhile, aboard the Iron Hammer, Captain Morrison was preparing his ship for the rescue mission. The massive dreadnought came alive with activity as the crew prepared for hyperspace jump. "All hands, this is the captain." Morrison's voice echoed through the ship's corridors. "We are responding to an alien distress call. This is a rescue mission, but we're going into potentially hostile space. All departments prepare for possible combat, while maintaining readiness for humanitarian operations." In the medical bay, Dr. Park was working with his team to understand the alien biological data. "Their respiratory system is completely different from ours," he explained to his nurses. "They process oxygen through what look like gills as well as lungs. We'll need to adjust our atmospheric mix." Chief Engineer Blake was modifying the ship's life support systems. "If we need to take 43 aliens aboard, we'll have to expand our environmental controls," she told her team. "I want portable life support units ready for immediate deployment." In the Marine quarters, Sergeant Major Stone was briefing his soldiers. "We don't know what these aliens look like or how they'll react to us," he said to the assembled troops. "Remember, this is a rescue mission. We go in ready to fight, but hoping to help." As the Iron Hammer entered hyperspace, its hull glowing with the energy of faster-than-light travel, the crew settled in for the 17-hour journey. None of them knew that they were about to make contact with a species that thought of them as dangerous monsters from a death world. Admiral Kane remained in the command center, watching the ship's progress on the star map. In a few hours, Humanity would either gain new friends among the stars or face a new enemy. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn that humans did not abandon those who called for help, no matter who they were or where they came from. The countdown had begun. Aboard the Gentle Current, the situation was getting worse by the hour. Captain Vell watched the life support readings drop to 15%, while his crew grew weaker and weaker. The 5 younglings were barely conscious now, their small bodies struggling to breathe the thin air. "Captain," whispered Navigator Finn, his voice so weak it was hard to hear. "The humans. How much longer?" Vell checked his timer. 2 more hours. We just have to hold on for 2 more hours. Dr. Kef was moving slowly between the injured crew members, doing what she could with their failing medical equipment. Several. Aquari had already fallen unconscious. The ship felt like a tomb, quiet except for the labored breathing of the survivors. Suddenly, the ship's sensors began beeping with an urgent alarm. Vell forced himself to stand and stumbled to the navigation console. What he saw on the screen made his blood run cold. "By the deep waters," he gasped. "Finn, look at this." A massive object was approaching through hyperspace, something so large that the ship's computer was having trouble calculating its exact size. The energy readings were unlike anything in the Aquari database. What is that thing?" Finn asked, pulling himself up to see the display. Before Vell could answer, space itself seemed to tear open in front of them. A swirling vortex of light and energy appeared, growing larger and larger. Then, like a sea monster rising from the depths, the human ship emerged from hyperspace. The Iron Hammer was a nightmare made real. It was enormous, at least 40 times larger than the Gentle Current. Its hull was black as deep space, covered in armor plating that looked thick enough to stop asteroids. Rows of weapon emplacements jutted out from its sides like the spines of some deadly creature. Missile launchers, energy cannons, and devices that the Aquari sensors couldn't even identify covered every surface. The front of the ship was shaped like the head of a predator, with sensor arrays that looked like glowing red eyes. Along its sides, Vell could see the scars of battle, places where the armor had been damaged and repaired, telling stories of violent conflicts among the stars. "This is what answered our call for help?" Dr. Kef whispered in horror. "This is a ship of war, not rescue." The Iron Hammer moved closer, and now they could see smaller details that made it even more frightening. Gun turrets tracked their movement automatically. Launch bays stood ready to release fighter craft. The entire vessel hummed with barely contained power. Then the communication system crackled to life with a deep, rough voice that sent chills through every Aquari on the bridge. "Alien vessel Gentle Current, this is Admiral Kane of the Terran, Navy. We are responding to your distress call. Prepare to be boarded for rescue operations." The voice paused, and they could hear other humans talking in the background. Then the Admiral continued, "Do not make any sudden movements or attempt to activate any weapon systems. We are here to help, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Captain Noy. Vell's hands shook as he reached for the communication controls. His people had called for rescue, but they had summoned something that looked more like death itself. Still, with his crew dying around him, he had no choice. "Human vessel," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This is Captain Vell. We have no weapons. We are a science ship. We surrender ourselves to your mercy." There was a long pause from the human ship. Then the Admiral's voice returned, but it sounded confused. "Surrender? Captain Vell, we're not here to conquer you. We received your distress call and came to rescue your crew. Do you need medical assistance?" Vell blinked in surprise. These warriors, with their massive ship of destruction, claimed they were here to help? It seemed impossible. In all the stories he had heard about Deathworld species, they were savage creatures who fought and killed without mercy. "Admiral Kane," Vell said carefully, "we are dying. Our life support has failed, and we have injured crew members. But your ship, it is built for war." Another pause. Then a different voice came over the radio, calmer, more gentle. "Captain Vell, this is Captain Morrison of the Iron Hammer. Yes, our ship is designed for combat, but we also carry full medical and rescue facilities. We have doctors, life support, equipment and everything needed to save your crew. May we come aboard to help you? Dr. Kef grabbed Vel's arm. Captain, the younglings don't have much time left. Whatever these humans are, we have to trust them. Vel looked around at his dying crew and made his decision. Captain Morrison, you have permission to board our vessel. Please, help us. Understood. Preparing rescue teams now. We'll have you and your crew safe in 30 minutes. The Iron Hammer moved closer and the Aquari could see airlocks opening along its side. Smaller craft began emerging. Sleek shuttles that looked fast and dangerous but also equipped with medical symbols and rescue equipment. As the first human shuttle approached their ship, the crew of the Gentle Current huddled together in fear. Through the viewports they could see figures in powered armor moving inside the shuttle. The humans looked huge and threatening, even in their rescue gear. They look like soldiers, Finn whispered. Because they are soldiers, Vel replied quietly. We called for help from a species of warriors. The docking clamps engaged with a loud clang that echoed through both ships. Then they heard the hiss of airlocks connecting and equalizing pressure. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside the bridge, footsteps that belonged to creatures much larger and heavier than any Aquari. The bridge door slid open, and the first human stepped inside. The creature was tall, much taller than any of the Aquari. It wore powered armor that made it look even more massive and threatening. The armor was military green with scratches and dents that showed it had been used in real battles. A helmet covered the human's face, with glowing displays, and sensor equipment that gave it an alien, robotic appearance. But then something unexpected happened. The human stopped just inside the doorway and slowly reached up to remove its helmet. As the helmet came off, the Aquari saw their first human face. It was the face of a female, with short brown hair and kind eyes. Her skin was pale, and there were small scars on her cheek that spoke of old injuries. But despite her warrior's armor and weapons, her expression was gentle and concerned. I'm Commander Hayes, she said in accented but understandable Aquari language. We're here to help. Medical team, get in here now. We have casualties. More humans entered the bridge, but instead of weapons, they carried medical equipment and portable life support devices. They moved with military precision, but their actions were focused entirely on helping the dying Aquari crew. Captain Vel watched in amazement as these fearsome Deathworlders knelt beside his weakest crew members and began working to save their lives. The contradiction was too much for his exhausted mind to understand. Warriors who came to heal, soldiers who came to rescue, Deathworlders who treated alien children with infinite care. What kind of species had they contacted? Commander Hayes looked around the bridge of the Gentle Current and quickly assessed the situation. The air was thin and stale, making it hard even for humans to breathe comfortably. The Aquari crew members were scattered around the room, some unconscious, others barely able to move. Medical Priority 1, she called into her radio. We need portable atmosphere generators and emergency medical kits. These people are in bad shape. Behind her, 4 more humans in powered armor entered the bridge. But unlike Hayes, they kept their helmets on and carried large medical cases instead of weapons. They moved with the same military precision, but their focus was entirely on the dying aliens. Dr. Park was the first to reach the younglings. He was a short, stocky man whose armor bore medical symbols instead of combat insignia. When he knelt beside the smallest Aquari child, his movements were surprisingly gentle for someone in such heavy equipment. Easy there, little one, he said, softly, even though the child couldn't understand his words. His tone was universally calming. He pulled out a scanner and began running it over the young Aquari's body. Captain Vel watched in fascination as the device beeped and displayed readings that Dr. Park somehow understood. The human doctor frowned at the results, then reached into his medical kit and pulled out a small breathing mask. This should help, Dr. Park said, carefully placing the mask over the child's gills and nose. Immediately, the young Aquari's breathing became easier, and some color returned to its pale skin. How did you know how to help our young? Vel asked, his voice filled with wonder. Dr. Park looked up and smiled. Your distress call included biological data about your species. We've been analyzing it during our journey here. Your respiratory system is actually quite elegant. You can process oxygen through both gills and lungs simultaneously. We just had to adjust our equipment to match your needs." While Dr. Park worked on the children, the other medics spread out across the bridge. Sergeant Martinez, a tall woman with gentle hands, was helping Navigator Finn sit up and breathe from a portable oxygen unit. Another medic, Corporal Thompson, was carefully examining Dr. Keff's injuries from when the asteroids had damaged their ship. "Commander," called out one of the medics, "we need to get these people to our medical bay as soon as possible. Several of them have severe oxygen deprivation, and that injured officer has internal bleeding." Hayes nodded and activated her communication system. "Captain Morrison, we need immediate medical transport. The aliens are in worse shape than we thought." Morrison's voice came back clearly. "Understood, Commander. Medical shuttles are standing by. How many passengers?" Hayes did a quick count. 43 total, including 5 children. At least 12 need immediate intensive care. We're ready for them. Bring them home. As the human medics prepared the Aquari for transport, Captain Vell noticed something that amazed him. These warriors, who looked so frightening in their battle armor, were treating his crew with incredible care. When they lifted injured Aquari onto stretchers, their movements were precise and gentle. When they spoke to frightened crew members, their voices were calm and reassuring, even though the words were in a foreign language. Sergeant Martinez was helping one of the older Aquari crew members walk to the transport shuttle. The alien was weak and stumbling, but instead of becoming impatient, Martinez simply adjusted her pace and provided steady support. "Take your time," she said in broken Aquari, obviously having learned a few words during the journey. "No rush, safe now." Dr. Keff, who was conscious despite her injuries, grabbed Vell's arm as she was being moved to a stretcher. "Captain," she whispered, "these humans, they're not what the database said they would be." Vell nodded, equally confused. Everything about these creatures suggested they were born for war. Their ship was a weapon, their armor was designed for battle, and they moved with the coordination of trained soldiers. But their actions spoke of compassion and mercy. Commander Hayes approached Vell as the last of his crew was being prepared for transport. "Captain, we need to move you now. Your condition is worse than the others. You've been breathing this bad the longest." "I must stay with my ship," Vell protested weakly. Hayes shook her head firmly. "Sir, with respect, your ship is dead. Life support is completely gone, and the hull breaches are too severe to repair out here. We'll take you aboard the Iron Hammer and get you healthy, then we can discuss what to do about your vessel." As they helped Vell onto a stretcher, he looked around the bridge of the gentle current one last time. This had been his home for 5 years, and now he was leaving it in the hands of alien warriors from a death world. The transport shuttle was unlike anything Vell had ever seen. The interior was clearly military, reinforced walls, weapon storage, and seats designed for armored soldiers. But the medical equipment was more advanced than anything in the Galactic Council. The humans had converted their war machine into a sophisticated ambulance. During the short flight to the Iron Hammer, Vell watched Dr. Park work on the most seriously injured Aquari. The human doctor's hands moved with practiced skill, using devices that could monitor alien biology and adjust treatment accordingly. "How long have your people been practicing medicine on other species?" Vell asked. Dr. Park looked up from his patient. "We haven't. You're the first non-human patients we've ever treated. But the principles of trauma medicine are fairly universal, and your biological data helped us prepare." Vell was stunned. These humans had risked their lives to rescue complete strangers from a species they had never even met before. They had modified their equipment, learned basic words in his language, and treated his crew as if they were their own people. The shuttle docked with the Iron Hammer, and Vell got his first look inside the massive human warship. The corridors were wide and functional, with exposed pipes and wiring that spoke of a species that valued efficiency over beauty. But everywhere he looked, he saw signs that this ship's crew was prepared for his arrival. Signs had been posted in both human, writing and hastily translated Aquari script, showing directions to medical facilities. The air had been adjusted to be more comfortable for his species. Even the lighting had been modified to be less harsh for Aquari eyes. As they moved through the ship, Vel saw human crew members stopping their work to watch the injured aliens pass by. But instead of the curiosity or hostility he might have expected, their faces showed concern and sympathy. A young human technician approached Commander Hayes. "Ma'am, we've prepared special quarters for our guests. Temperature and humidity are set for aquatic comfort, and we've installed communication systems with translation protocols." Hayes nodded approvingly. "Good work, Jenkins. Make sure they know they're welcome here." As Vel was wheeled into the medical bay, he realized that everything he thought he knew about Deathworlders was wrong. These humans were indeed warriors. That much was obvious from their ship and equipment. But they were also healers, protectors, and caregivers. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. Soldiers with hearts of gold. 3 days had passed since the rescue, and Captain Vel was finally strong enough to walk through the corridors of the Iron Hammer. The human medical bay had worked miracles on his crew. All 43 Aquari had survived, including the 5 younglings who were now playing games with off-duty human crew members in the ship's recreation area. As Vel made his way to Admiral Kane's office, he marveled at how the humans had transformed part of their warship into a comfortable living space for his people. The corridors that once seemed cold and threatening now felt welcoming. Human crew members nodded politely as he passed, and some even attempted to greet him in broken Aquari. The door to the Admiral's ready room slid open with a soft hiss. Admiral Kane stood looking out a large window at the stars, his hands clasped behind his back. The room was simple but functional. A desk, chairs, and walls covered with star charts and what appeared to be military honors. "Captain Vel," Kane said, turning around with a slight smile. "Dr. Park tells me you're making excellent recovery. Please sit down, we need to talk." Vel settled into a chair that had been specially adjusted for his physiology. "Admiral Kane, I must thank you again. Your people saved our lives when they had no reason to help us." Kane sat across from him, his expression becoming more serious. "Captain, you said in your distress call that you're part of the Galactic Council. Tell me about this council." "The Council is a union of peaceful species from across the galaxy," Vel explained. "We explore space, share knowledge, and help civilizations grow and prosper. There are over 200 member species, all dedicated to science, art, and peaceful cooperation." Kane's eyes narrowed slightly. "And Earth? What does your council know about Earth?" Vel felt uncomfortable under the Admiral's steady gaze. I checked our database after we were rescued. Earth is listed as a restricted world. The classification says it's a death world and contact is forbidden." "Forbidden," Kane repeated, his voice growing cold. "And why is that?" "The records say that death world species are too violent and dangerous to be trusted, that they only know war and destruction." Vel paused, looking around the room that belonged to these supposedly savage beings who had risked everything to save his people. But the records are clearly wrong. Kane stood up and walked to a wall display showing a map of local space. With a touch of his hand, the map zoomed in on a sector near Earth. "Captain, do you recognize this region?" Vel studied the display and felt his heart sink. "That's where we were stranded, the Kepler 442 region." "Exactly. And do you see these installations?" Kane highlighted several structures on the map. Military bases built by 3 different council member species, the Vorthak Empire, the Hegemony Coalition, and the Rigel Confederacy. The implications hit Vel like a physical blow. They're expanding toward human space. "More than that," Kane said grimly. "They're cutting off our trade routes, threatening our colonies, and building up forces for what looks like an invasion. All this while your council maintains that we're too dangerous to even talk to." Vel stared at the map in horror. The council species he knew as peaceful explorers were acting like conquerors in this region of space. I had no idea. Our exploration missions are always in the opposite direction from this sector." "Of course they are," Kane said. "Can't have peaceful council members seeing their military expansion, can we, Captain Morrison entered the room, carrying a data pad. Admiral, we just received intelligence from our scout ships. The Vorthak are moving a battle fleet toward the Proxima system. That's where we have 50,000 colonists. Kane nodded, grimly. How long until they arrive? 6 days, sir. Vel felt sick. The Proxima system wasn't far from where they had found him. If the Vorthak were moving a battle fleet there, it meant they were preparing for serious military action against human space. Admiral, Vel said quietly, there must be some mistake. The Council promotes peace. They would never approve of military aggression. Kane sat back down and looked directly at Vel. Captain, let me ask you something. In all your years with the Council, how many species have you encountered that evolved on harsh worlds? Planets with dangerous predators, extreme weather, or scarce resources? Vel thought about it and realized he couldn't name a single one. None. All Council species come from peaceful garden worlds with abundant resources. Exactly. Your Council isn't promoting peace it's maintaining control. They've created a galaxy where only soft, gentle species are allowed to participate, while keeping out anyone who might challenge their authority. The truth was becoming clear to Vel, and he didn't like what he was seeing. But they genuinely believe that Death World species are dangerous. Are we dangerous? Kane asked. Your crew has been aboard this ship for 3 days. Have we threatened you? Demanded payment for the rescue? Tried to steal your technology or interrogate you for information? Vel shook his head. No. Your people have been nothing but kind to us. Captain Vel, Morrison interjected. Your younglings have been playing with our off-duty crew. Yesterday I saw Sergeant Martinez teaching them human games while they taught her Aquari songs. Does that sound like the behavior of savage warriors? Vel felt ashamed. Everything he had been taught about Deathworlders was not just wrong, it was deliberately misleading. What do you want from me? Kane leaned forward. We're taking you and your crew to Council Station Harmony. It's the nearest diplomatic outpost. You can return to your people and resume your life, but I want you to think about what you've seen here. The Council needs to know the truth about humans, Vel said slowly. Does it? Kane challenged. 3 Council species are about to attack our colonies. When you report back, will your superiors listen to your story about peaceful humans? Or will they assume we brainwashed you or threatened you into saying good things about us? The question hit Vel hard, because he already knew the answer. The Council bureaucrats would never believe that their fundamental assumptions about Deathworlders were wrong. They would assume he had been corrupted or coerced. There's something else, Morrison added. We intercepted communications from the Vorthak fleet. They're not just planning to attack our colonies. They're planning to frame us for attacking first. They want to make it look like the dangerous Deathworlders started a war. Vel felt the weight of terrible knowledge settling on his shoulders. The galaxy was about to see a conflict that would pit the peaceful Council against the supposedly savage humans. But he knew the truth. The humans weren't the aggressors. What can I do? He asked. Kane smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. That's up to you, Captain. You can return to your people and tell them what you've seen. Maybe some of them will listen, or you can stay silent and let events unfold as they will. Vel looked out the window at the stars. In 6 days, human colonists would face attack from a Council species fleet. The humans would defend themselves, and the Council would point to that defense as proof of their violent nature, unless someone who had seen the truth was willing to stand up and speak it. Admiral, Vel said finally, I think we need to make a stop before you take us to Council Station Harmony. Where? The Proxima system. I need to see what happens when the Vorthak arrive. I need to witness the truth with my own eyes so that when I testify before the Council, they cannot dismiss my words. Kane and Morrison exchanged glances. Then Kane nodded slowly. Very well, Captain. But understand, what you're about to see may be the beginning of a war that will reshape the galaxy. As the Iron Hammer changed course toward human space, Vel realized that his simple rescue mission had become something much larger. He was about to become the bridge between 2 very different views of what civilization should be. The stars held their secrets. But soon, the galaxy would learn that sometimes the greatest warriors make the greatest protectors.